Hi, I'm Danny Quinn, and today we tackle my monthly contributions to the Super Inc. Movie Club. Last month I reviewed Roland Emmerich's Godzilla, and the theme for this month was any movie beginning with the first letter of my name. And I was not short on choices for that either. I had Django Unchained, Dread, Dumb and Dumber, The Dark Knight, Drive, all considered before I eventually decided to go with Die Hard. It just seems like the right time to do it, especially with that new Dwayne Johnson movie coming out, Skyscraper, as well as it being Die Hard's 30th anniversary this year. And just like my Godzilla review, I should let you know this review will contain spoilers, so if you haven't seen Die Hard yet, and quite frankly, why haven't you? You really should check it out, it's very good. I would suggest watching the film first and then coming back and watching this review afterwards. Or not, it's entirely up to you. I can't force you to do that. If you just want to watch the review and don't really care about spoilers, that's entirely fine. So with that out of the way, let's get started. The plot of the movie is that NYPD cop John McClane, played by Bruce Willis, has just arrived in Los Angeles on Christmas Eve to try and rekindle his relationship with his estranged wife Holly, played by Bonnie Bedelia. But when he arrives at her workplace, the Nakatomi Plaza, things take a majorly unexpected turn when a group of terrorists, led by the charismatic Hans Gruber, played by Alan Rickman, take over the building. Trapped, McClane is forced to take matters into his own hands as the police and FBI fail to take control of the situation. To say that Die Hard is an action movie classic is a major understatement. Not only is it considered by many to be one of the best action movies ever made, it is also arguably one of the most influential action movies ever made too. I mean, chances are you've probably heard of the phrase Die Hard on an X, Die Hard on a bus, Die Hard in the Rocky Mountains, Die Hard in a stadium, I shit you not, Die Hard on a boat, twice, Die Hard in a prison, twice, Die Hard in the White House, twice, Die Hard on a plane, more than a few times. Hell, I can even think of more family-friendly examples of the subgenre, such as Die Hard in a House and Die Hard in a Mall. And of course there's sequels that are of varying quality. Die Hard 2 is a largely enjoyable action film, even if it doesn't quite match the original. Die Hard with a Vengeance is an awesome sequel that almost matches the original. It has great action, a strong cast, and a terrific setup that's utilised very well. Die Hard 4.0 isn't too bad in my opinion. Yeah, it is kinda hampered by it being PG-13 and not being as violent or as profane as the first three, and the action scenes are really over the top. But if you look past that, it is a pretty enjoyable film, and it doesn't feel too far removed from the first three films. And the less said about the abomination that is the fifth movie, the better. I will probably talk about these movies more in depth in the future, but for now, let's stick to the original. This movie is directed by John McTiernan, who was just hot off the heels of directing Predator the year before, and he'd go on to direct the third movie, Die Hard with a Vengeance. And his direction throughout the film is excellent. He directs the film in a very old-fashioned kind of way, particularly in how it's shot and cut together, really allowing you to soak in the details and get a good sense of the geography of the Nakatomi Plaza. And he also uses POV shots very effectively too, particularly during the scene where McClane is first walking through the plaza during the Christmas party, almost as if to convey how strange and alien the setting is to him, and setting up how he's the outsider, the fly in the ointment, the monkey in the wrench, the pain in the ass, as he so gracefully puts it. He's been invited to this Christmas party pretty much entirely by mistake, and he's literally the only thing that's stopping Hans and his men from succeeding in their well thought out plan. McTiernan's directing is easily one of the film's biggest strengths, and while he does deliver a very exhilarating and exciting thrill ride, he also doesn't rush everything. The film takes its time setting things up. It's about 17 minutes before anybody is actually killed. That's about 45 minutes before McClane springs into action and has to fight one of the terrorists. Up until that point, we spent quite a bit of time setting up McClane's relationship with his wife and setting up Hans' plan. And McTiernan also demonstrates a great knack for building up suspense and tension in between all of the spectacle and excitement, especially my favourite scene in the film, the scene where Hans and McClane first meet face to face. It's such a suspenseful scene with terrific camera work and editing that just makes you feel deeply on edge as the two try to psych each other out. McClane opens up to Hans about his own feelings but is careful not to give too much away about himself, and Gruber's also trying to figure out how to get an advantage in the situation. It manages to be a brief moment of respite that's also extremely suspenseful. Now let's talk about Bruce Willis. His portrayal of John McClane pretty much made him a star overnight. Of course he's since become a huge action star, but back then he wasn't really known for anything anything outside of the TV show Moonlighting, and if you didn't know him from that, you probably knew him from his music. And while nowadays it's probably impossible to consider anybody else playing the role of John McClane, back then he wasn't even the first choice for the role. Harrison Ford and Sylvester Stallone were both considered for the part before they eventually cast Willis, and even went as far as to pay him $5 million, which was a huge sum for 1988. Only the likes of Dustin Hoffman and Warren Beatty ever saw that kind of money back then, and it made up a good chunk of the film's $28 million budget, so I can assume there was a lot of doubt over whether or not Willis could actually pull off this kind of role, especially since he was known more for comedy than action. But he really nailed it. He manages to bring a lot of that wit and humour to the role of John McClane. He delivers some really entertaining and funny one-liners, but also brings a lot of humanity to what could have otherwise been a very standard action hero. He feels very believable when compared to the Schwarzeneggers and the Seagals of that era, and what adds to the character is that he's basically just a normal person. Little touches throughout, like his fear of flying and his constant talking to himself, really do cement the fact that this is just an everyday guy trying to cope with the situation that he's been thrust in. Even though he's a cop, he's not a one-man army who can mow down bad guys in a heartbeat. He's a vulnerable hero who can and often does get hurt throughout the film. In fact, for much of the first half of the movie, he spends most of it trying to get help. He's very much a reluctant hero. But as the saying goes, a hero is only as good as his villain. And when we're talking about villains like Hans Gruber, it's hard to argue otherwise. Gruber has pretty much went down in history as one of the most iconic movie villains of all time, and for good reason. Alan Rickman was only really known for theatre work at the time and had a few roles on television, but never acted in a movie before Die Hard. Yet he really nailed the character down to a T. He has the right blend of sophistication and charm with genuine menace and intimidation, even with a little bit of dry wit on occasions. And Rickman's performance just conveys that he is not somebody to fuck with. And I also kind of like that for all of his posturing and his misquotings of Alexander the Great, he's really nothing more than just a pretentious thief. Yeah, he's very intelligent and cunning and a master planner, but he's just putting on this pretense of being a terrorist just to make himself seem more important than he actually is. Pretty interesting subtext the more I think about it. Even the film's supporting cast is excellent. Most of the terrorists are pretty fleshed out and have quite a bit of personality. Even somebody like Argyle, who just drives McClane to the plaza and spends much of the movie trapped inside of a limo. Hell, even characters as obnoxious as the two Johnsons or Ellis are surprisingly entertaining to watch. The Johnsons are really loud-mouthed, overly confident FBI agents who do nothing but hinder McClane's efforts throughout much of the second half of the movie. But the actors are so good and the chemistry between Robert Davi and Grandel Bush is so strong that they are actually quite entertaining to watch. And Ellis is just great. I mean, how can you just not love that beard and smile? It's a great combination. Don't get me wrong, I hate this guy, but I love him at the same time. He's really smarmy and slimy, but in kind of an endearing way. And Hart Bochner really does a good job playing this character. He's so funny in the parts that it's kind of sad whenever he attempts to reason with McClane and it inevitably backfires. You also have William Atherton playing Dick Thornburg, a news reporter who's just out for a good story, regardless of who gets put in danger. Everybody always seems to remember him as Walter Peck from Ghostbusters, but to me he's always going to be Dick Thornburg. He's so smug and unlikable that he makes Peck look quite reasonable by comparison, and I'm always thankful when Holly punches him in the face at the end. Not gonna lie, that scene's always very satisfying. Speaking of Holly, I like that for much of the movie, even though she is a hostage, she does try to take charge of the hostages and make sure that they're safe. She tries to take control of the situation on several occasions, such as when she asks Hans if a pregnant co-worker could sit on a more comfortable seat, or how she pisses off Hans by calling him a common thief towards the end of the film. She's very much been forced into this position after Hans killed her boss, much like how McClane is forced to become this reluctant hero. She's not just somebody sitting on the sidelines waiting for McClane to rescue her. But my favourite character outside of McClane and Gruber is probably Powell, played by Reginald VelJohnson, a police officer whom McClane communicates with through a walkie-talkie for much of the film, before they finally meet face to face at the end. He's this very laid-back kind of guy with a real love for Twinkies, and he's pretty much the only person that supports McClane through his ordeal. I really like the back and forth between the two, and the scenes where they open up to each other are very touching in a way. Especially the scene where McClane talks to Powell while tending to his bloodied feet and asks him to tell his wife that he loves her, and then Powell opens up to him about how he accidentally shot a kid. And of course the ending where they finally meet and Powell's able to take down the remaining bad guy is just so satisfying. This movie has so many great characters in it. The only one I don't really care about all that much is probably the Deputy Police Chief, Robinson. Indeed, Roger Ebert said in his review for the film back when it first came out that the character pretty much ruined the entire second half of the film for him because he's so stupid and so idiotic. And I do kind of see his point, to be honest. There's a great exchange where McClane chews him out for for his poor handling of the situation after the police have just been bombarded with missiles and gunfire, and McClane responds to him by saying that he's in charge of jack shit. It's a funny line, but it describes just how dumb the cops are in this film. And I think that's my only real issue with the movie. I get that the cops are kind of meant to be ill prepared for this sort of situation. It kind of feels like it's done to an implausible degree at times. Like they're just holding the idiot ball for the sake of the film's plots. That's my only real issue with Die Hard. Nearly everything else about the movie I flat out love. The action in this film is just superb. It's brilliantly filmed and edited, and it all feels like it's essential. It doesn't feel like you could cut out one action scene and you wouldn't miss anything. Every single set piece feels like it's important. Not only do they demonstrate McClane's resourcefulness and serve as a showcase for some fantastic stunt work, but they all feel like a crucial part in showing McClane's physical deterioration throughout. There's just so much tension throughout the action as well, especially in that scene where McClane's crawling through the vents and trying not to be spotted by Hans's men. And then the shootout that occurs after Hans and McClane meet for the first time is really intense and really brutal, and especially the fight between McClane and Carl, which has been building up all throughout the movie after McClane killed Carl's brother early on in the film and just had to make something of a joke about it. And it is really satisfying and entertaining to watch. It's probably one of the best fist fights ever put on film. And I especially love how McClane just taunts Carl all throughout the scene, even whenever he's getting his ass handed to him. And of course, the big rooftop scene. Hans and his gang are just about to blow up the roof in order to trick the FBI into thinking that they're dead. McClane's cornered, he's being shot at in a helicopter, so what does he do? He grabs a fire hose and jumps off the building with the hose wrapped around him as the roof explodes. It's such a jaw-dropping scene. Not only is it spectacular to watch, it is really tense and suspenseful, especially since McClane is really desperate at this point. He's scared out of his mind and he's pointing out just how foolish a risk it is. He's pretty much taking a literal leap of faith and he could very easily die. But at the same time, there's no other way for him to possibly survive. And I also love the bit whenever he shoots the windows and you think he's safe and he's back on hard ground, the hose starts falling and he has to free himself. The scene just doesn't let up. It's such a great scene, and it's another scene that cements Die Hard's place in action movie cinema. And then the final showdown between McClane and Gruber is another major highlight. The lighting, the camera work, the editing, the directing is all superb. It almost has this western-like feel, McClane limping onto the scene almost like a cowboy, which sort of serves as a bit of a payoff for all the cowboy references earlier on in the film. And as much as I always love it whenever McClane says his signature catchphrase, "Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker," for some reason I've always loved how Alan Rickman delivered the phrase. It's just so perfectly timed and delivered that it's really funny. Alan Rickman, whenever he's not chewing the scenery, can just deliver some really, truly deliciously dry one-liners. And of course, I always love it whenever in a movie a hero and a villain have a laugh over a shitty joke or something like that. Yeah, it's a little cliched, but it's a cliche that I never get tired of seeing. And Hans' demise is just really satisfying. The way it builds, the slow motion shot of Hans falling. I also love how his expression changes from anger to fear in a split second. And the music as he falls is just classic. So yeah, Die Hard is still awesome. Even after 30 years, I still think it's one of the best action movies ever made, and easily one of my favourite films, period. I'm not quite sure where I'd rank it on my list, but it would have to be pretty high. Probably top 20, maybe even top 10. There's just so much this movie does right. On paper, the premise sounds very standard, but the execution is nothing short of outstanding. The action, the characters, the writing, the directing, the editing, the cinematography, the production design, it's all to a very high standard. It might be a bit slow paced for an action movie, but once the shit hits the fan, it is so much fun to watch. With that being said, I'm gonna give Die Hard a very strong 9.5 out of 10. I can't quite bring myself to give it a 10 out of 10 because it isn't without flaws and I never give a movie a 10 out of 10. So for the time being, I will say a 9.5 out of 10 is probably the highest rating you're ever going to see on this channel. And I highly recommend watching Die Hard if you haven't yet. It is my personal favourite out of the 5 films we've gotten so far. This film and With a Vengeance are easily the most rewatchable films in the series, and I come back to both movies quite frequently. But this one still kinda has the edge. I will probably cover all of the other Die Hard films, and I really look forward to talking about them in their own way. Okay, not so much the 5th one, but I'll probably have to cover it for completionist's sake. But like I said, if you haven't seen the original Die Hard, you're really missing out. Check it out. It is so worth your time. And if you have seen it, but haven't seen it in a long time, I hope my review has encouraged you to give it another watch. So Die Hard, have you seen it yet? If so, what did you think of it? Did you like it? Did you not like it? What did you like about it? What did you not like about it? Let me know down in the comments below. Do you think Die Hard is a Christmas movie? Again, let me know down in the comments below. Thank you once again for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Sorry it's a wee bit long, I just had a lot to say, and when it comes to Die Hard, I could talk about it for an hour or more. But in the meantime, feel free to like the video, leave a comment, maybe even subscribe to my channel while you're at it. If you want to follow me on social media or contact me via email or support me on Patreon, links below down in the description. And if there's anything I can do to improve my presentation, do let me know. I'm always happy to hear feedback. And until next time, I'm Danny Quinn. Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker.